Hello, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and welcome to the Contact Manager with Google Contacts Sync. In this training, we're going to create from scratch a brand new contact manager. I'm going to show you how to upload those new contacts to Google Sync. I'm also going to show you how to update contacts in Google Sync when you create them. And I'm going to show you how to import existing contacts from Google Contacts inside Excel. It's going to be an amazing training. I've got so much to show you, including a really cool filter feature. I can't wait. Let's get started. All right, thanks so much for joining. I've got a comprehensive contact manager I'm going to create for you right in front of you this week. We did do a contact manager a few years ago. That was a very simple form, and we were basically demonstrating how to turn a sheet form into a database and how to create and sync that with your database. This training, we're going to go a lot farther. I'm going to be creating a comprehensive contact manager complete with sync to your Google Contacts and Google Contacts back into the application. I've also got a really unique and very cool filter feature I'm going to show you, and a whole lot more. So I hope you stick around for the whole masterclass. It's going to be incredible. If you do like these trainings, all I ask is just a few things. If you can click on that subscribe button below, and don't forget to click the notification icons bell. I create these each and every Tuesday for you. So I would love to bring you these every Tuesday. That'll get you notified when I do create these applications and training. Always a free download. All you need to do is click the links down below, either with your email or with Facebook, and we're going to send this application to you absolutely free right to your email or download. Okay, fantastic. If you do like these applications, like I said, I create one each and every week. You can download them for free. But if you want to get an entire pack, a full zip with all the applications inside, along with a one-click library that's going to allow me to share with you and click that training with YouTube, so you can compare one click to YouTube training, one click to open the application. That's 175. I've now got 175 of those. And I've got a current promotion for just $66. That's the newest product. If you'd like to get that, that would help us out. That'll keep these trainings for free each and every week. So that would be great if you could pick that up. I'd really appreciate that. I want to get started right away on this. We've got a lot to cover. I'm going to try to do everything from scratch in front of you. We may be copying and pasting a little bit of code, but I'm going to walk you through each step. That'll help speed things up. These trainings tend to be over an hour. No doubt this one will be too. So let's go ahead and save the first two columns for our admin. There's not going to be much, maybe just 3 rows of admins. Not too much going on. I'll just color those gray, and then maybe we'll do just the first 3 rows. I'm going to give that the green. Those are the only ones we're going to be using for admin, so I'll put a border around those and just color those green. Not much going on there. I'll go all the way to R. This is going to be our header, and then what I want to do is I want to format those cells, and we'll do a fade. I know you guys like to walk through you as I do each one, even though sometimes there are repeats, but we'll go ahead and give it this color here, and then I'll do a minimum color here, medium blue, like kind of a turquoise or light blue. And then the row below, what we'll do is the same thing as we do if you've seen my videos before. If not, we'll just go to the second fade. This will give us that fade effect. And so what I'll do is create this second, and then we'll go to the light blue. Then we're going to create a base color. It's going to be this light blue as the base color that we're going to use for the entire application down here. So that's the base color. I'm just going to color a whole bunch of rows all the way to, again, R, and then just give it this base color. This is the one we're focused on right here. So we've got that. That's going to be our basic idea. Now let's give it a title. I want to give it a title. Notice this is already a Merge Center. Going to make things a little bit easier for us so we don't have to do everything. It'll speed up these trainings because they're already long. And I want to give it a subheading. This is a contact manager, but it's going to be with Google and then Contacts Sync. Now let's keep it all in capitals. Okay, so it's Contact Manager with Google Contacts Sync. We're going to go both ways on that. So what I want to do is basically I want to have kind of a row of buttons here, and then the next I want to have some kind of a filter. I want to have our list of names here. So when we click a name, I want the form to show up here, and then some buttons to be able to save it. So let's do that. Let's call this contacts, right? So that'll be our contacts. And then I want to have some kind of a filtering ability here and some buttons here. So a list of contacts. So we're going to give this just a little bit of a deeper color. So, and then across here, I want to be able to search the contacts. So we'll go ahead and put in search contacts. So because we want to have different search features. So we'll search contacts, and then I'll have a space. So we'll put this white because that's where the user is going to be able to search. And then I want to have a search by. So searching by would be first name or last name. So search, so we can search by more than one. That's going to be really cool. So search by, I've got a data validation here, first name or last name. I just put that in previously because it's going to make it go a lot faster. Data validation, it's just a list with two options. It's going to either be first name or last name. That'll bring it a little bit quicker. Okay, so that's going to be pretty much it. I'll put my button set across here. So also this is going to be white because we want the user to enter it. So anything that's user entered is white. And now what I'll do is I'm going to select those, hold down the control and select these. I'm going to give these a border, format cells, and the border here. So I'm going to give it probably a dark blue border, basically like this darker blue, the same theme color. Going to go around the outline and put the dotted line in the middle. That's what we're going to do throughout. So we've got contacts and search by, and then I'll also add a border around here in a bit, and then a double border. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my fields here. So perhaps something like first name would go here, and then we'll put the first name field. Last name would go here, put the last name here. Phone 1, we'll have multiple phone numbers. Phone 1 would go here. Phone 2 would go here. Down below, maybe I'll skip a row and go email 1. We'll have multiple, and then I'll use a merge and center. Notice this is going to be a larger field, and then we'll do email 2. So I've just done a little bit of work to format those. Email 2, I'm going to merge and center this. And what else do we want? I want more than just that. I want a company name, so I'll put a company. And then also here I want website. So we got website here, and then the last one probably something like notes. So notice how they're already merged and centered, kind of help us to go along. So I'm going to hold down the control. And then what I'm going to do is I need to merge and center this one because that's going to be a larger field. I'm going to hold down the control and I'm going to format those. I'm going to give it the color white, the background color white. I'm going to right click it, go to format cells. Then I'm going to go back to the border. I'm going to use that same theme border, this same color here. And I'm going to give it this line, but it's going to go all the way around except I'm going to change the left side to be that dotted line. Okay, and then I'm going to hold down the control for the fields here. And I'm going to do the same thing, but this time it's going to be just opposite. So I'm going to hold down all of those, right? And I'm going to right click, format those cells. I'm going to go back to the border. In this case, we're going to do the border, the top. Actually, I'm going to go with the solid border, the top, the left, and the bottom. The dotted line's already on the bottom. Merge and center. This one, we want that email to belong. Merge and center, and then left justify. And then let's re-add the border here. So we need to update that since we've just merged and centered. So format the cells, same border color, and then top, right, and then bottom. So we've got that there. Perfect. And so now basically what I want is the contacts here. So I'm going to also put a border around here. And then so what I want to do is a list of contacts. And then around those contacts, I want to have, when we select a specific contact, so I'll go all the way down here. I'm just going to add a border, something a little bit different. So I'm going to format those cells. Sorry, it's a little bit off the screen there. I'm going to give it the double line on the right, and then the single line on the left, and then the bottom line and the single left here, because that's going to give us a little bit. So the idea is when you select a contact, I want the contact list to be here, and I want that contact to load. Now, of course, we have to store all that contact information. We're going to store that here on a second sheet called the contact list. We're going to have a contact ID, unique, that's going to be assigned by Google, all of the fields, and then of course the row number. We're going to be using a filtering criteria is going to help us out here. And then of course we are going to have import, we need a sheet import. This is going to come from Google because we're going to import from Google Sheets. We're going to bring it to Google and Google Contacts, and then of course we are going to all the unique names, anything from Google, we're going to bring it in here. This is just going to be a temporary data. This is going to allow us to import it, and then we're going to bring it in here. So that's the way we have it. So let's take a look. What do we want here? I want to put an option. I want the user to be able to contacts. You know, we're going to have a list of contacts. Do we want the last name first or the first name last? So either one. Let's take a look at that. So I want an option. I want to give the user an option. So we're going to go and give it add an option. So we're going to go insert, and then we're going to do a, let's say, checkbox here under the form controls. And right up here, I want to just put a little option here. We're going to give it a name. We're going to call it last name first. So if this is checked, it's going to be last name first. Okay, good. That's the way I want it. So, but I also want to put this to a specific cell. I want to tie this option to a specific cell. So format those cells. We're going to take a look at that, and I'm going to put it into B1. So I'm going to select here in B1. Click OK. So we're going to give this. So as soon as we check it, that's going to go to true. So I'm going to ask last name first. I want to know whether the user wants to see these names, either last name first or the first name first. I also want to know what the database row is, contact database row. When I select a contact, I want to know exactly what row, 4, 5, or whatever it is. I want that row to be displayed right here. And that last thing is I want the selected contact row. I actually have conditional formatting. I was working on it. I want to know the row. So actually, let's take a look at it. So as soon as I change the row, I want conditional formatting. I forgot to delete it, but that's okay because usually I delete it. So let's take a look at that conditional formatting. Manage rules, I've already got it here. Usually I was supposed to delete it and then recreate it for you, but you kind of get the hint. So what we want to do is I want to know if B3 equals the row, I want to give it this color. What is that color? I want to use a fill. The fill, this dark blue fill, it's a fill effect. So it's going to go from this blue to this blue, right? It's going to give it that fill effect, and it's going to change the font, and it's going to go to bold. So in the font, bold, and that's going to be white. That's going to give it. So all I have to do is select on this specific contact. It's going to load up, and I know what contact selecting. As soon, and of course I forgot the applies to manage rules. It applies to C5 through C34. You can change that to 99 or whatever you want. So just apply that. And it'll go. So now we select it. So as soon as this changes to a number, you're going to see that that automatically gets highlighted. So as soon as their name goes in here, you're going to be able to see that. Okay, great. That's the only conditional formatting we've got on that. So I wanted to cover it pretty simple on the conditional formatting. Let's focus on the buttons. Also, what I want up to the top here, what I want is a letter. You know, just like one of those Rolodex, if you click on a letter, it's only going to search names that contain a certain letter, like A or start with them or something like that. I really like that idea. And so let's go ahead and do that. I want to know what that would look like. So I want to create letters up here and buttons. I want a button set up here, maybe a save, an add new, and a delete, so that we can easily do that between contacts. Let's add in our buttons, and then we're going to add in the filter. So let's go ahead and the filter button. So let's go ahead and add some shapes in there, some for the buttons here. So I want some button here. Let's call this save, and then maybe update. And then we can make that bold, and then keep it white, and then right justify it, bold. Right justify it, and then we'll duplicate the other numbers. So on the right justify it, that's going to be what I want. And then let's give it a kind of something a little bit closer to the theme. So I'm going to format it, and let's give it this theme. That looks good. I'll make it a little bit bigger. Now what I'll do is I'll just duplicate that. For Control D is going to duplicate that. I'm going to have that for the add new, so it's going to be called, and I'll add some icons. That's the last thing I'll do. Add new. And we can shrink that, and then of course delete. I'm going to hold down the Control D again. It's going to be delete. So we've got our buttons here, and let's just shrink those up because we don't have a lot of space for them, but that should be sufficient. And add new and save update. Okay, I like that. Let's just line those up, holding down the Control and then lining them up. Going to put those in the middle. That's about where I want them. We'll add icons. But before I do that, what I want to do is I want to add another type of buttons, a button set up here. So we select a specific letter. It goes into that search content, so we can search contents for that specific letter, starting with A or something like that. So let's do that. So let's insert another type of shape. And this type, I want to put, let's see the top row, like this one, rounded to rounded single corner. I want to do rounded double corner here. So let's look at that. That's rounded double corner. This is the one that I want. It's called rounded same side here. So that's the one I want. I'm going to enter that. Let's click on it again and enter that. Now I'm going to keep it small, but I want to put something about probably like 0.2 and then 0.28. Something like a width, because I want each one of these for a letter. Okay? And I also want to give it the same type of format that the other ones have. And now I'm going to put, let's just say A in here, okay? But I want that A to show up obviously in the center. So we'll go into the home, center that like that. That looks pretty good. Maybe bold it here. Okay, I like the way that looks. So what I want to do, I'm going to call this, I'm going to put this off to the side. Actually, I'll put it right about here. It's fine. And then what I want to do is I want to give this a name. So we'll call this sample letter. Now what I can do is not only do I want to name those, I want to give it a value. What do you mean? So I want to give it, I want to put the B, C, D, but I don't want to create it 26 times. And I also don't want to give it a name. Each one has to have a unique name. But I can use VBA for that. VBA can do all that for us with just a few lines of code. So that'll be great. So let's do that. I want to show you how to do it. So basically I want to create one of these for each, and I want to list them all across here. So how do we do that? Well, let's do that now. Inside VBA, we'll just create a little macro that's going to do that for us. Notice we have one shape called sample letter here. That's all I want. So let's go into the VBA, into the developers tab. If you click on the developers, you don't have that developers tab. You go into file, options here, Go in the Customize ribbon and just make sure you select the Developers tab. That'll get you to it. You can also get into it by Alt F11. That's the shortcut. So let's go ahead and click on the contact filters. I have 3 modules here. They're pretty much empty except a few subs here that we have just empty for now. We'll go ahead and add those in. So what I want to do is I want to create something called Create Letter Buttons. And so that's the best way to do it. We can use the macro to create all those buttons for us. So the first thing what we want to do when we write that is dimension something. So we're going to dimension the character number. We need to go through character numbers. So the best way to do that is to define a character number as long. What do I mean by character numbers? Well, to get those characters, right, I need to know the character equivalent of each letter because I want to loop through those. And in fact, it's the ASCII character 65 to 90. Well, how do I know that? Well, if you look here on Wikipedia, we have the character numbers. If you see it's an ASCII table right here. If you scroll up, that's the printable characters, the code. We've got the octet, the decimal code, and the hex code here. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to looking for the A. Now I want to get the character code. I want to go from 65, this is the 65, and I want to go all the way to Z. So we're going to go to 90. So we need a loop to go from 65 to 90. That's just what we're going to create inside our. So we need the character number as long. And I also want to dimension the shape name, dimension the shape, because we're creating different shapes. So shape name as a string, because we're going to update that. And now we're going to focus on with sheet 1. So with sheet 1. Now notice how that end with came. I use auto hotkey for that. That's a free software. Just look up auto hotkey. You can create that too. So with sheet 1, so if we're going to create that loop as I talked about for character number, let's see, number is going to be equal to just what I had mentioned, 65 to 90. That's the one we want to create. So we need to close our loop. Next character number. Inside that loop, what do I want to do? I want to set the shape name. I want to set a unique name for each of those shapes, each letter. So shape name is going to be equal to, we've already defined equals letter, and what else? And the character number. So we need the character number. What is the character number? It's going to be the character number. That's the one we're going to loop through. Okay, so now we've created a shape name that's going to go from, of course, 65 to 90. That's going to be letter A, letter B. So each one's going to have its own one. Now what I want to do is I want to take our sample shape here, this one right here, the one we got just the right size. I want to duplicate that, and then I want to give it a name and a value. So we can do that with the following lines of code here. Dot shapes, sample letter, dot duplicate. And now when we duplicate, we need to give it a name. I want to give it a unique name equals the shape name. We've already defined it above, shape name. So now that we have the shape name, we can work with it. We can focus on that. Dot shapes, and then here, shape name, dot text, text frame. That's the focus. We want the text in there. Dot text range, dot text. So what is the text? What do we want inside that? Well, basically I want A, B, C, or D, right? So what does that equal? Equals the character and then character number. That's it. That's all we have to do. That sets the letter text. But I want to do that. So now that we have that, now that we're setting on that, what I want to do is I want to set the position. I want to set the position, everything but the first one. In other words, what I want to do is I want to, once it's duplicated, I want to set the position. I don't want them to be all on top of each other. I want them to be all the way across here, right? So I want to set the position, except for the first one. Wherever the first one is going to be wherever it ends after it's duplicated. For example, if I duplicate this, Control D, it's going to end up right here, which is fine. And then everything else I want to the right of that. So how do we do that? Well, the first one, we don't want to worry about the left position. Let me just delete that here. So the first one we don't need to worry about. Every other one we do want to focus. We want to put it to the right of the previous one. So how do we do that? So if the shape name does not equal, right, not the first one, letter A, so it's not the first one, then do something. What do we want to do? I want to set the left position. Dot shapes, shape name. So we're focused on that shape. Dot left is equal to what? It's equal basically to the right of the left position of the previous one. So it's going to be equals dot shapes letter, right? Because it's going to be the letter, right? But we're focused on the previous one. Letter and, right? What's the previous one? And the character number minus 1, right? That's the previous minus 1. That's going to get us. So now when we do dot left, it's going to get us the previous one. So minus 1 dot left, but I want the left position of that, right? I want to focus on the left position right here. We need this dot letter and character number, right? One more parentheses here, double. So not only do I want the left position, I don't want it to equal the left position. I want it to be the left position plus the width of whatever the shape is, right? So what does that mean? Let me show you what that means. So let's say I duplicate this shape. Well, I want to put another shape here, but I want to put that shape, I want to put it right up here. So it has to be the width, the left of this position, plus the width of this, plus a little bit more because I want a little bit of a space between there. So I need to do that. So plus the width, plus a little bit of space. So what is that? So the left position equals the left plus dot shapes, again, the same shape, right? The same shape, but not the left position, the width of this shape. So let's copy that plus the width, dot width of that shape. That's what I want. Plus a little bit more, right? I want it on top of each other, plus 2. That's it. So there we go. That's it. So let's take a look at that. Let's check that here. That's our loop. So now all we have to do is this is going to actually not only create 26 different buttons for us, it's going to also name them accordingly. So let's save our work here. And let's always save before we run the macros in case anything goes wrong. And let's just take a look. Let's bring this down here and see what happens when we run this. If there's any issues, we'll fix them as we do. So let's run it. And then the variable, let's say shape number. No, that's not the correct one. Shape NM, that's fine. I'll continue on. Perfect. Look at that. You see it just created it. That's exactly what I want. Excellent. Now we don't need this, but I do want to create something else actually. So let's format this, and I want to actually increase the width of this and use this button for another purpose. So let's put this to, let's say 0.5, and then, or maybe a little bit more, 0.7. And I want to make sure, I'm going to put this called a show all, 0.7, that should be fine. I'm going to change this to show all. So let's edit the text here, kind of small, show all. So that's going to allow us to show everything, and then make it a little bit bigger. All right, good. So now we've got it all up there, and that's what we want. So now we've got everything just the way we want it to. So let's use our selection tool, encapsulate all of these and bring them up. And then we're going to group everything together, bring it up about, say, right here. That should be fine, right about there. Now what I want to do is I want to group them, and then I want to group them all together. So I'm going to line them up here, but I want this one to all be in line. So let's move it over a little bit here, and then put the show all here. So then we're going to group them here. So let's move them over. We'll get out of the selection tool here, move them over a little bit. We have room on the right side, so we can move them over all the way on the right. Then I'm going to put the show all here, bring it down the same. Great, now we're ready to group them all. So I'm going to, again, use my selection tool, line everything up so it's perfect here. Good. Now we're going to group it. And now the last thing, the very important thing is we're going to right click, size and properties, and make sure that we don't move or size with the properties. Moving is okay, but certainly not sizing. Click move, but don't size with the cells. So there we have it. So now the idea is when I click on one of these, I want the A to show up in here in the search context right here. And then I want to search contacts here that have A. Now we're ready to add in our icon. So I'm going to insert some pictures here, and I've got some pictures saved up right here. So let's just insert all of them. Insert, and then I'll adjust the size because they're all going to be different. So let's just go to 0.5. And then actually we could probably use a smaller. This one's going to be big. This is our contact. I'll use this one here, right here for our logo here. And then we'll make this a little bit bigger, and then we'll size the rest down to something more reasonable. So we'll go about 0.25. I think it's good. 0.25. And then I would like to put my buttons on first and then put the icons, because that way they're always going to be on top. So we'll click the add new. That'll be fine here. Delete here. I've got one more button I've got to create here, and then the save update. And I also want to import to Google. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add a button up here. We're going to call it import Google Contacts. Make that button a little bit bigger here, and that's what I want. Import Google Contacts. Perfect. So let's check the spelling. Import Google Contacts, save and update. Now take a look at this. We need to crop this because this is kind of, so when you want to crop it, just go into the format, crop, because it's a little bit, we can crop pictures from here too, so that's no problem. Crop it if, it doesn't line up because it doesn't look like the same as the rest. So we'll just crop that here, and then just click crop again, and then return it back to its original size. I think we're on 0.25. Now it looks similar to the rest. Now we're good. Now, of course, this one we need to, since we created the button after, it's going to be behind the button, right? So we just bring it to the top. That's all we need to do. Import Google Contacts. Here, I'm going to hold down the control. Make sure everything's lined up vertically there. So now we're good to go on that. and then I'll bring this over here. I'm going to group these buttons, quickly designing these forms. You'll be able to design these forms very quickly. I know some of you have seen me design these forms a lot, but sometimes the repetition does help because it'll allow you to be that much quicker because you've seen me do it a few times. So now we've got this, everything's lined up here. Good, now we're ready to start programming it because we're all done here with the form. That looks great, that's just the way I want it. So again, we'll put in, let's say Charles, first name, last name, Frederston, like that name, and then give it a, can do a format here. And then actually we can put in an additional format. You know, keep in mind that sometimes Google contacts want things in a certain format. So keep that in mind sometimes, you know, certain emails. And then we'll put Charles at Gmail. We can do multiple emails, and then we can do a company name, and then it's just called incorporated. Okay, so we've got just some sample data because we're going to be, the first macro we're going to be doing is going to be saving this. So we'll add in a website and then sample notes. Okay, so the idea is twofold. One, I want to save this information to the contact list here. Two, I want to save it to Google Contacts, and I want Google Contacts to tell me the ID. Normally we do our own ID, but since we're uploading it to Google, we're going to have Google tell us what contact ID it sent to us, and it's going to give us a contact. I'm going to bring it right back in here. So Google Contacts, if you're not familiar with it, is this right here. This is our Google Contacts. So the idea is we have Google Contacts and all the information. When we save a contact in Excel, it's going to get uploaded to Google Contacts. Then it's going to be available on our phone and everywhere else. A really cool feature. Likewise, when we want to bring in whatever contacts we have inside our Google, it's going to bring them into Excel. So we're going to do twofold on that, and we're going to be able to filter that. So let's focus on saving. Let's get the information into our database right here, and then we'll take care of the macro. And again, we're going to use data mapping. Now, I've used data mapping in the past, and I'll continue using it in the future. If you've seen it many times, sorry, we're going to go over it one more time real quick. But the idea is this, right? We need to get this information into this table. The best way to do that when you have a lot of information is to map it. So in other words, F6 is going to be equal here to F6. We're going to say H6, which is the last name, going to be mapped to H6 here. So the idea is to look in those cells, whatever's in those cells, bring them into the associated row. It would be the first available row for new contacts, or for existing contacts, it's going to be whatever row is going to be displayed right here into B2. If B2 is empty, we know it is already a new contact, right? So if we use empty, we know it's a new contact. If B2 contains a value, it is an existing contact. So let's focus on the save and update. Save and update, this particular button is going to do twofold. It's going to either save or it's going to update our contacts. So that's just what we're going to focus on in this video. So let's go ahead and add this macro in that's going to allow us to save it, and it's going to allow us to put it into Google. So it's going to do two of those. We can bring this up now. We're finished with most of that. I'm going to save our work, and I'm going to go into the VBA, and we're going to focus on that macro, that first macro under contact macros. This is what we're going to call save and update. So this is the macro we're going to focus on here. And in this particular module, we've dimensioned a few types of variables that we're going to use for multiple macros. Contact row, we're going to need the contact column as we loop through, and the last contact row. And also the field value is string. That's going to help us out. So how do we get this information into? How do we get it? Well, the first thing what I want to do is I'm going to copy. I've got some text here. It's going to make things go a little bit quicker. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste some dimensions from some information. So we're going to dimension object HTTP. This is faster than me typing it in. URL is a string. We're going to need that response as a string because we're going to send information out to Google and get things back. So we need this, and I'll explain what that is. And the contact field is a string, and the contact ID is string. So great. So now that we got that, we're going to focus on with sheet one. With sheet one. So now with sheet one, the first thing, I'll just make the first name required. I want to make sure that F6 has a value. If it doesn't, we need to let the user know. So that's the first thing we can do. If .range F6 is empty, then what do we want to do? Let the user know. Equals empty, then message box, please make sure to add a first name. Exit sub, nothing we can do unless we have that. Okay, assuming that we do have a first name, we are ready to go. I also want to make sure that if determine is it a new contact or is it an existing? B2 is going to tell us that. If B2 has a value, it's existing. If it's empty, it's new. So let's write that into the code so we can use an if, then else. So if .range B2 .value equals empty, then it's a new contact. Else existing. and then close our loop and if. Okay, so we're going to do a few things if it's a new contact that we're not doing for an existing. The first thing we're going to do is we need to find that row. So it's going to be the contact row. It's going to be equal. It's on sheet 2. That's where sheet 2, and I'm going to use auto hotkey here to help us out. It's going to be column A. The first available in column A is going to be the last row with the value +1. That's going to be the first available row. So first available row. Okay, so once we have that, I also want to know the row. That's going to help us out, especially when we delete. So I'll show you this. In this row, all we're going to do is put in this formula, equals row. We're going to do that for every single new contact. So that's going to go down here. So I want to put that into K right now because it's only one time and it's only for new contacts. It doesn't get updated. So we can do that. So sheet 2 dot range K and the contact row and the contact row dot value equals, and then we'll just do quotation marks equals and then row. That's going to put that formula in right there, end quotes. So that's going to add row formula. So now that we've added that, those are the only two things that I want to do for the new context for now. Else it's an existing. So what about for the existing? For the existing, what I want to do is I want to determine the contact row. Contact row, we know where that is, right? It's in B2 right here. Because it's not empty, it contains our contact row. It's going to be equal B2. It's called existing contact row. So now that we have that, I also want to determine the ID. I want to put that inside a variable. Contact ID, we have it labeled up here as a string. Equals, where's it going to be equal? It's going to be equal to in sheet 2A, right? Our contact ID is already there because it's not a new contact, and it's going to be located inside A and whatever the contact row is. So let's go ahead and put that into a string variable here. So sheet 2 dot range A and the contact row dot value, and that's the contact ID, because what's going to help us out, because if it's existing and we make an update, we need to look it up on Google and make the update not only in our application but in Google as well. Pretty cool stuff. So that's it. So now that we have that, so now what I want to do is I want to run a loop. Now our contact ID is already here for existing, so I want to run a loop from 2 all the way to 10. If you see this is equals column 10, so I want to run a loop from 2 to 10. Inside that loop, I want to look in F6 on sheet 1. Whatever is in F6, put it here. Whatever's in H6, put it here. If it's an existing, it would go in whatever row it is. So that's going to start out with a loop. That's data mapping. So we're going to do that loop. So it's going to be based on the column. So it's going to be for contact column equals 2 to 10. And then close our loop, next contact column. Okay, we've already defined contact column as a long variable all the way up here, contact. So what do we want to do inside? Well, the first thing what I want to do is I need to get a string. I need to send all of this information. I need to send all this information to Google. So what I want to do is I want to get a big string value, and I want to know the first name, Bill, the last name, Smith, right? And I want to know, put that into a string. That's going to be to send it to Google. So how do we do that? Well, let's do this. A field value, what is the value of the field? The field value is going to be equal to dot range, which is on sheet 1, but what is the range? The range itself is here, F6, H6, J6, and so on and so forth. So let's put that range in there. Sheet 2 dot cells, we're using cells because both the column and the row are variables. Row is 1, in this case it's 1 because it's the first row. And what is the column? It's variable, so it's going to be the contact column. Okay, so that is the range dot value. So that's where we're going to find our field value. Now what I want to make sure, if the field, just in case I don't want to send a blank, sometimes when we send blanks to Google, it can have issues. So let's do this. If field value equals empty, then I'm just going to add a space. And let's put double quotes. Then field value equals, I'm just going to put a space. It's going to kind of help us avoid errors. Add space if necessary. That way it's going to avoid some errors which I had in testing this just for blanks, especially with emails. So, all right, now that we have it, so now what I want to do is I want to build this hook, right? This is called a webhook. Basically, it's a string. Inside that string, I want this called first name, and then I want the first name. Inside this string, I want the last name. I want everything to build up this string. Now in the past, what we've done is we've done variables for each of them. It's a bit long. I've got a great shortcut I'm going to show you right now on that. So let's do this. We've already defined something called contact fields as a string. Contact fields as a string. So that's what we're going to use. I copy that. equals, what's it going to equal? Well, let's take a look at this. Equals whatever is existing. So we're building the string. We're building it up as part of the loop. So so we're adding and adding onto it. Each field we're adding on. So it's going to be the contact fields again, because we want to know what's previously been added onto it. So copy and paste that to make sure you get the variable right. And, right, it's additional. And what else? Sheet, again, sheet 2. Let's copy this because we've already done it. We'll just update that here. Sheet 2, right? And then we'll update the contact. So there we go. Sheet 2, in this case, 3, right? Because I want to start with this name. I want the value of the name of the field, right? I want this. This is what I want. First name, last name. That's going to start it out. Then after I get the first name, then I want the actual value. Okay, so first the field name, then the value. So this is the field name right here, 3. Contact and then dot value. Okay, so we have that sheet 2 row 3 contact out. That's the value. What else do I want? I want some more. Then I want to add additional fields, and then I want the and sign because I have to separate those. Then I want the equals sign because what does it equal? Equals, right? And then the value. So then next up is the value, and where's the value located? Of course, it's located in sheet 1, right? So the value is located here. Again, it's exactly the same as this one right here. This is the value right here. And the field value. We've already defined the field value. Field value. So that's it. So we've got the value. And what else? After that, what we need is we need the and sign so we can separate those. So we also want to put that in because that's going to separate between the fields. So and, right, and the and sign. And sign, I want to build in that string. So that separates each field. And then the last and sign, the last one we just have to remove. So as that builds up. So that's it. So next up, what I want to do is actually have to add the data to the database. So sheet2.cells contact row, comma, contact column dot value equals, what's it going to equal? Again, it's going to equal this field right here, equals the value right here. So we just need to copy and paste this. That's going to be on sheet 1. So that's going to add the data, add data to table, call it database. And so now we've added the data to the database. We've built our string, which we're going to be able to send to Google in order to add the information to Google, and we're good to go. That's it. That closes our loop. So that does everything. So now we've built up our string. So the last thing is, remember we have this last and. I want to remove the last one because we don't need the last one, but we need everything in the middle. So let's do that. Contact fields equals, and we're going to use the left actually. So left, I want the left and then the contact. That's our string, contact fields is our string, and I want the length because I want to remove the last character. So you can use the length command, and then again, what are the length of what? The contact fields. I want to remove just the last row of fields. So the length of this minus 1. So what that's going to remove the last character, and the last character is this and sign because I want to remove that from the string. Great. So now we've got the string built up and we've removed the last and. Now we're ready to automatically send this information to Google. So let's do that. So I'm going to copy again this space. This is going to be a little bit longer line, so it's easier in case I set the object HTTP. I just copy that, create object, MS XML. It's going to send something to the server via HTTP. I need to send to Google, so this is going to help us do that. And also what I want to do is I want to add it to Google. We're going to do two things. We're either going to update Google or we're going to add to Google, and that's going to be based on B2. If B2 is empty, we know we're adding to it. So let's start out with that. If .range B2.value equals empty, then add to Google, else update Google, right? Context, just say context. And if. Great. So perfect. Now we've got that. Now in order to send it to Google, we need to define a URL. So that URL is going to be equal to, and then what we want to do is I want to put a webhook in here. Just put in something I called hook, and I'll show you how to get that in a minute. We'll replace that webhook and then the question mark. And what do I want? I want to add the contact fields. Contact fields. That's what I want. So I want to add. What if it's not? If it's not, right? If it's an existing, what I want to do, I want to send something else. I want to send the URL, the hook. We're going to replace this in a second with a different hook. But I also want to send the contact ID first. That's important. So I want to send the contact ID. So we're going to put in, because I need to look up the existing contact using the contact ID because it's an existing one. So contact ID and then and what? And the and sign. Let's add in the and sign, okay? And then the contact fields. So that's it. So once not only so that I can look it up and then add the fields to Google. So and the contact fields. So we're putting that, separating that inside, and we need the and here too. So we've got that. So basically now all we need to do is get in our hooks, and we'll get those in a minute, but let's fill out some of the rest of this. And so once we have our hooks, I'm gonna copy and paste some information. It helps us go a little bit quicker, and then I'll explain it. So I'm gonna copy this from some notes I have. Then I'm gonna put it in here. So basically what we have to do is object, see, it's quicker. Open, what we're gonna do is we're gonna patch or get or anything like that. We're gonna post, patch, send it to Google. Post or patch would work. Send it to Google. We're going to request a specific header. Content type is application JSON. So basically we're sending information to Google. We're going to use Integromat for that. If there's no internet on air, I'm going to pause this out just in case there's errors. I want to see those errors in case I have any. And then what I want to go get the response. What is the response back? And get that into a string variable here. Great. So basically we're going to use Integromat, which is a great tool. And that's going to get us our URLs and hooks, both for updating, adding to Google here, add to Google, and updating Google content. So we're going to use two different scenarios, and I'll show you what that is. So let's go into that now and take a look at that inside our tab here. And then I've got scenarios. This is called integromat.com. It's a really cool. If you haven't seen it before, it's like Zapier, but a lot better. So we can create lots of different scenarios here. We're going to be creating a scenario. So basically what I want to do is I want to create something called a webhook, and I want to send that webhook to Google Contacts, and then I want that to send some information back letting us know that the contact has been added. We're just focused on adding, and then we're going to focus update. So I'm going to click on create new scenarios. Once you get signed up, it's free. I do have the paid version because I use it a lot, but you're welcome to just use the free version. It allows up to 2 or maybe 3 different scenarios, but it's worthwhile. Okay, so what I want to do is going to search for some things. What kind of services do you want to integrate? So I want to use a webhook. So I'm going to type in webhook. That's the first thing I want to use. And then also Google Contacts. Google Contacts. So that's Google Contacts. So those are the two I want to use. Then we're going to continue. Now we're going to build it up. First thing I want to do is get a webhook. I want to get a custom. Remember, we talked about getting that. It's going to be called custom webhook. So what it's going to do is going to assign us a webhook. So the first thing we're going to do is click add. And let's just call this add contact to Google. Okay, that's fine. Anything is where you can put in anything. We don't have any IP restrictions. That's fine. Click save. What that's going to do is it's going to assign us this webhook right here. So we're going to copy that address, and this is the one we're going to use for add. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste that inside our code right here. Remember hook? Get rid of the word hook. We don't need that. Actually, it's this one where the adding. Remember, we're focused on adding to Google. This is our webhook, just sending the contact fields directly to Google. Then what I want is the response. I'm going to ask for the, remember, Google Contacts is going to assign us an ID. I want to know that contact ID, so I'm going to put that in the response. So that's just what we're going to do. So the first thing what I want to do is I want to run this and get all that information into that. So I want to run it here. Let's take a look at that. We've got to go back to the one we add to Google. This is the one we want. So we've got our webhook now, and we're going to, what I want to do is I want to click redetermine the data structure. I want to add some information in here. So let's do that right now. Let's click on here. It's going to wait. It's listening for this. So we're going to take this hook. Remember, this hook is going to end. It's going to end in 2WAN. So make sure that that's the correct hook. If you have multiple hooks, make sure you've got the right one. So 2WAN is correct. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to run this code and see if there's any issues. Contact fields. It's going to add that on. Contact fields is what we have that. And then let's go ahead and variable not defined. Again, spell these right. Contact, CONT. Okay, get the variables and then continue on. Again, same thing, incorrect variables. I don't remember the variables. I create variables and I always remember what I created. Run those. Okay, that looks good. Let's take a look at that. It got sent here. Let's take a look at that back in here. Add to Google. And then let's run it one more time. Just double check it kind of went out of that. So I'm going to run that just one more time. Run it here. Okay, good. So now it's successfully determined information. That's what I'm looking for. I'm going to click OK. I'm just looking for this one called successfully determined. Clicking OK. Now I'm going to move this over and I'm going to add another one. And I want to add Google Contacts. And what I want to do in this case, we're creating a contact. So I'm going to click Create Contact here. Now what we do is we click inside the first name and you see all this information we sent. Remember, we sent all this information. Notice that these exact names are the exact same labels that we have up here because these are the labels we sent. Everything from first name to the notes. We sent all that. So that's just what I want. I can tell you now all we need to do is map the data inside. So let's take a look at that. So the first name I'm going to click on here. Family name, we'll put that as a last name. And then email, we can add those. We can add multiple emails. So I'm going to click on here. And And I'm going to call this, this is going to be our email 1, and we'll just call this display name email 1. Click add. I'm going to do the same thing for email 2. So click on add. And then again, we'll map this to email 2 here. I think I put that right. And then we'll call this email 2. Okay, double check that. Click add. Okay, so email 1 is email 1, name email 2. We're going to do the same thing for phone. I'm going to click on add. Phone number, of course, is going to be phone 1. And then we'll call this, give it to type. You can give it any type you want. I'll just leave it blank for now. And then click add a number. And then phone 2 is what we want, and click add. So now we've got phone, we've got notes. We do have a notes field, so why don't we click on here, clicking adding notes. I'm going to show additional settings. That's going to give us some information. We got, this is Japanese for Yomi. We don't need that. Okay, so we're just going to, company name, we do have a company name, so why don't we click on here. And we also have a website here, so we might as well put that in here. Let's call this domain. That's going to be our website. Okay, great. So now we have all the information. That's going to send it all to Google. Click OK. And now what I want to do is I want to get some information back. Right? I want to get a webhook, but I want to get something called a response. That's what we're looking for, response. What do I want in that response? For new context, I want to get that contact ID, and I want to get that inside. So that's all I want. I want to take that contact ID, and I want to place it. I want to place that contact ID right here. See, we've run it, we've added information, but we don't have the contact. Google's going to tell us our contact ID. It's going to place it right inside, in this case, A6. So now let's check it out. Let's run it. So there's two things we want to do first. We want to run once, and then when we like what we see, what we're going to be doing is we're going to turn it on. So let's take a look. We've got everything up. We also can save it, and we can add a name to it. So let's call this Control A, add to Google Contacts. So now that we've added it to Google Contacts, I'm going to click run once, and it's going to basically wait. And so I'm going to run this again, but this time I just want to make sure that we have this blank. We have all this information here. I'm just going to remove this here because I want it added again. So we've already added it. So now I'm going to run this macro again here, and then I'm going to go back into our thing, and it's going to say there's an issue here, and the issue is, in this case, email address parameter invalid email address. So we've got an invalid email address. So keep that in mind. Let's make sure we put in the correct email address. So let's take a look at here. Charles@gmail.com. Let's go to put another one because we put a space in there, so I'm going to put it fred@gmail.com. I'll fix that so that we can accept it because all we did was have a space. So that gets a little bit tricky when you're adding. In this case, I'll fix that to make sure that you get that updated, but it'll work now. Let's go ahead and run it one more time because it's going to look for an invalid. But if you have any errors, they're going to be up here. It's going to tell us because we put a space, right? It's looking for something, and you can also ignore errors too. If you want to ignore errors, you can, but let's fix it right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to run it one more time. It's going to listen here. And now what we're going to do, again, I'm going to go back into the database. I'm just going to remove that information, run the macro one more time from here, and then we're going to follow it on the enter command and see where we're headed. So now it looks good. We've added information, a response here. Good. Everything's good. So that's just the way we want it. We've got a response, but we don't know what that response is, right? So we actually want to place that response somewhere. What do I want to do? I want to take that response and I want to put it inside our database. So let's do that right now. But we're going to get the response regardless. So, but I want to say if dot range, again, in this case, b2 dot value equals empty, right? That means we know it is still a new contact. Then, right, I want to do some things. Sheet2 dot range a and contact row dot value equals response, right? A response is it, right? A response, perfect. Else, what do I want to do? Else, in this case, it would be an existing. So this is for new, existing. And so in this case, I also want to actually put in the contact row inside B2. I want to do something more. So now I want to fill in B2. We know we've just placed the contact ID here. And now what I want to do inside B2, I want to put that database row inside B2. So that's what we're going to do. So in this case, copy B2 right here, and then place that equals contact row. So that's only for it adds the row, adds database. So now what if it's an existing? If it is an existing, I want to put something else. If response equals, we can just put in response equals updated. We'll add the response. Then we'll message box contact, because we're updating it, right? Updated. And then else, okay, let's add that. Else contact not found. Maybe it's not found if it's not found. So we've got that. Let's update that. Else and the message box here. Okay, good. We got that all done, and so good. We're just done with this there. So that's it. We finished that. And now what we're going to do is we do have to build out, of course, the update, right? We built out for new, but we still need to build out the update. So let's do that. I also want to run some macros here at the end of this, of course. We're going to build out, like I want to show all the macros in case there's anything. Because basically once I add a contact, I want to add it to here. I want to show it here. But we'll focus on that macro next. Okay, but let's do this. Now we've built it. So now it's ready. We know it's good. So now we're going to just turn it on. I want to run it. Now it's on. So now every contact we add, we can get rid of this here. Every contact we add is going to automatically be added to Google. So let's take a look in Google Contacts, refresh this and take a look at our list, and we're going to run it completely and get that added. All right, oh, it's not there. I got to add it to the correct account. Notice there's multiple accounts. Let me add this. I've got another account. Let's put it on Excel. This account is what I want. Let's continue. That's the one I want. I want to put it, I've got a multiple Google accounts, so that's the one. It'll ask you to authorize that and click allow. Okay, perfect. Let's do that one more time. Let's take a look at that, make sure everything's working good. Everything's the way we want it here. Click OK. Save your changes. Make any save your changes. Now we've got it added to the right account. This is Excel for Freelancers account, so that's the one I'm using for testing. Let's get that again. So all we need to do is test it out, keep that empty, clear everything else out because we want to put that ID in here. Now we're going to assign the macro. So we're going to right click, assign the macro, then contact save update. Good. So now we're going to click save update. We're going to run that macro here. It's turned on. Now everything's running properly. We're going to refresh it. Let's take a look back in the database to make sure that our contact ID got added in appropriately. Here's our contact ID now, came directly from Google. Now we can go inside the right account, make sure we got the right account. I'm going to refresh this, and we're going to see now Charles got added directly because it was the right Google account. Okay, perfect. Glad we got 𝐲𝐿. So now we're going to focus on updating. What if I make a change? I want to update that. How do we do that? So we're going to do that right now. Back into command, we're going to click on scenarios, make sure you've saved any changes. I'm going to create a brand new scenario here. And again, we're going to do the same thing, webhook. So click on webhook right here, and then also click on Google Contacts. This time we're going to be updating contacts. So Google and then contact. So Google Contacts, same two, click continue, but this time we're going to be starting out with a webhook, custom webhook, right? Again, and we're going to click add. We're going to call this update Google Contact, not adding a new one. Saving that, it's going to assign us a webhook. We're going to copy that address to the clipboard. This time we're going to add that inside the code into our update. Remember, we focused on this one, of course, if it's to a new contact. This time it's for update, so we need to change that hook, and this hook is for the update hook. This one, the one we just copied, so we're going to save that, make sure we save it. Good. So but what do we want to do? The first thing I want to do is, again, run this, and I want to update this. So now we know, since there's a value in B2 right here, if I make an update to here, I want to make sample notes and update test. So now what I want to do is I want to update this. So I'm going to run this, which is going to, but before I do that, I want to make sure that we're ready to, so it's waiting. Notice it says stop. It's waiting for me to send it something so we can register. So that's just what I'm going to do now. I'm going to send it some information by running this. And because B2 I'm going to run the macro here. Contact not found, no problem, because we ran it. We don't worry about that because response is nothing. But we want to make sure that Google got it. So we want to make sure, so it says successfully determined. That's exactly what we want. Click OK. Now what we want to do is click Google Contacts. I'll make sure to click the right account this time. Click update the contact, updating a contact. And I'm going to, remember, you have multiple accounts here. I don't want the Austin, I want a different account. So you can also add a new one. So, but I think I've got multiple ones here, just a different. So this is a fine. Anything that has my name, email, my second email, that's the one I want. So I'm going to updating based on this account here. Of course, you can just add one yourself. Just click add, and you can, well, let's do it now just so you can see it. Update contact. And then it's going to, again, it's going to ask you to authorize a specific email account that you have. Again, we're focused on this one. So that's the one I want, and click allow. So that's all. You can create as many as you want. So now what we do is we have the contact ID. Okay, so we're going to focus. Now look, it sent the contact ID. This time it sent the contact, correct? See this? This is the contact ID. How do we get that? Because we sent the contact ID right here. So see this? Right in here. This part, contact. Let's go up here. Contact ID right here. We first sent the contact ID, then we sent the contact field. So now it contains that contact ID. We've defined it because it's an existing one, right? Because it's existing, we've defined that contact ID in the first row. So now it's an existing one. So now what it's going to do is going to look up the contact. We need that contact ID, so we're going to click here. Then what we're going to do again, we're just going to do the same thing. First name and then last name. We're going to do exactly the same thing. Again, adding the emails here. So we're going to add the email 1, we'll call this. Doing the same thing, calling email 1, display name, click add. And then, of course, we're going to do the same thing again. And then email 2, going through this. And then just give it a display name email 2, just as we did before. So it's going to be very, very similar. Add the phone numbers, clicking phone numbers. Again, phone number 1. And then we don't need to add a type. And then I'm going to add another one called phone number 2. Then all we're going to do is add the company and the information. Okay, click add. Now again, notes, we're going to add the notes here. And then super easy, show advanced. That's where we're going to get the company information. Company name is here, so click on the company name, and then also I want to click on the website here, which is the domain here, and then click on the website. Great, click OK. Now I want a response. Now we know if the response, I want to just add a simple text. You could pretty much add anything, but I'm going to click on webhooks, webhook response, and I'm just going to call this updated. That's all we want. Remember, why is that? Because in our code, we're looking for something here. If response equals updated, then message box contact updated. But if it's not, it's going to be contact not found. So if it's not this, it'll be something else. So if there's an error, it's going to be contact not found. So that's it. So that's all we need to do. Again, we're good to go on that. I think we got everything we want. Let's click run once. And now what we can do is click here. We can update that. Now we click on save update. It's going to do just that. Waiting to listen to it, contact not found. That's okay. We're only running it once. Let's take a look inside here and see what happened. Okay, again, probably an email field, intricate map, missing requirements, contact ID. Okay, so didn't find it. All right, let's put in a label. I think we need a label here. So I just want to put in here, it's probably good to have not just contact ID, but contact ID equals. I think that's kind of important. All right, let's take a look at it now. Let's run it again. Click on the run once here, and then go back in here. And then just click save and update and take a look inside Google. Watch how this happens. I'm just going to go ahead and update this information, right? Let's get rid of this and we're going to add contact ID. We do need that label. Almost forgot that. So now we're good. We're going to close this out, click back on run once, and let's just test it out again. Go back in here, save and update. Now let's go take a look at the operation here. 111, no errors, perfect. Let's take a look back in Excel. Take a look here, contact updated, that's what we want. And of course, let's take a look inside our contacts. And of course, it says say sample notes and update test. That's what I want to see inside here. Inside Charles here, let's refresh that here. So it says this is the old sample notes. If I click refresh, it should be updated those notes. Clicking on here again, it says sample notes and update test. Perfect. So now we see how contacts can be updated. Awesome. So now we've got contacts added, we've got contacts updated, but I want to do additional. We need to, of course, add new and delete. So let's go ahead and focus on that. So now we've got that. Let's go into the macro and focus on that. Now the add new is really simple here. I just already added it in here because all we're doing is just going to clear out fields. That's it. Super simple, nothing. And we're going to include B2. Remember, B2 and B3. Want to clear out the selected contact row in B3. I'm going to go through this. So B2 and B3, we're going to clear those out of 2. So all I need to do is just right click here. Actually, I'm going to group those, hold down the control, group them, right click, assign the macro, clicking on the assign macro, contact, add new. That's okay. What about delete? We can write delete really quick. Okay, we've got that. So let's click on the add new. It's going to clear everything out. That's the way I want it. Perfect. So what about delete? So we need to write the delete, and then we're going to get into the filtering, and then we're going to be done. It's a little bit longer training, but we also need contact load. That's super important. Contact delete and contact load. Let's do that right now. Let's add in the contact load here so we can set that up. So it's pretty easy with sheet 1. And then of course, I want to make sure that B2 is empty. B2 is going to be the row. Without a row, we can't load the contact. So B2 has to contain a value. So if dot range B2 dot value equals empty, then message box, please select a contact to load. Exit sub. Okay, nothing we can do unless we have it. Now with contact row is going to be of course in B2. So let's copy this. That's where our contact row is. Going to copy this, and then the contact row is equal to B2. That's the contact row. Now basically all we're doing is going to just loop the opposite of that. So let's do that. If we're going to just the opposite of what we did right up here. So we're going to basically copy this, and then I'm just going to remove a few rows and I'm going to reverse it, and I'll show you what that means. So we don't need the field value. We don't need this, right? But what we're going to be doing, instead of saving it to the database, we're bringing it from the database. So all we need is just one line of code here and reverse it. What do I mean by that? Taking this part and going to be equals. So it's going to be sheet 1. Let's copy that properly here. I'm going to drag that over to the start part, and then I'm going to take the equals and I'm going to bring that right in between. So basically, it's sheet 1 equals whatever's in sheet 2. So it's just the opposite of that. Range, sheet 1, located here, our range, which is the first row, equals whatever's in sheet 2. That's how we load it. That's all we need to do. But how do we get that? Now what I want to do is I want to also delete the contact. We'll get to that in a minute, but I want to do is I want to load all the contacts we have right here. So let's load them. I want to bring them here, so when I select on them, they automatically load here, and then I select and I can load that contact here. It's going to place that. So how do we do that? Let's write a macro to load those contacts in from our database row. Now it's going to be either last name first or first name last, depending upon our selection here. All right, but since we've got the last macro, I might as well write this delete first, and then we can move on. So let's write that. If sheet1.range b2, right, we need a row dot value equals empty, then message box, please select a contact to delete, exit sub. Okay, because if we don't have a row, there's nothing to delete. So assuming that we do, contact row equals here, right here. So we didn't do sheet 1 because it's pretty easy. So contact row, so that's a contact row. So now all we need to do is sheet 2 dot range contact row and then parentheses, colon, parentheses, and contact row dot entire row dot delete. That's going to delete the row. Delete. That's going to delete. Then what I want to do is I want to run a macro. We're going to create that macro right now called contact list show all. And then I want to do contact add new, right? Because if we're deleting, we need to clear out all the fields. So we want to run this macro to clear out all the fields after we've deleted, and you want to update the list. I want to update the list right here. So now that we've got that, so we've got delete, we've done everything. We've got done add new, save or update. Either way, we've add new and load and delete. So we're done with that. So let's take a look at the contact filters, because I want to create some, but we've already done create letter buttons. We probably don't need that anymore, but I'll keep it for you. You can see it when you download this. Contact list show all. I want to write this macro now, and basically what I want to do with this macro is I want to get the list of names, first name and last name, or last name and first name, and bring them into this list right here. So let's write that macro right now so we can get those names in and start loading them up. So contact list show all is the one I'm going to be focused on here. So the first thing what I want to do is sheet 1, I want to clear out any existing sheet 1 dot range, clear out any existing contacts. F4, right, just in case there's any filter, right? Our filter is located here in F4, so I want to clear that out too. So F4 is going to be cleared out. F4, also I want to clear out all the names in the list, so it's going to be B5, because not only do I want to clear out the names, I'm going to load up there, and let's put this in here, contact row. So I've got the contact row here. Let's put that, but I want to put the contact row here and the contact. So when I click on a contact, I know what database row is here, 4, 5, whatever. So I'm going to put that. So I also want to clear out B5 all the way through C. So I'm going to do that right now. So B5 through C, and then we just do a larger 99 dot clear contents. Clear out existing contact rows and names. So once we have it clear, we're ready to load in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off application screen updating. Application, when we use copy and paste, it's always nice to turn it off. Just make sure that when you turn it off, you turn it on. So again, I'll turn it on right now, and then I'll put everything else in between. So I'm going to copy and paste that equals true. Everything is going to go, all of our code is going to go inside here. So that's an easy way to do that. So also what I want to do basically is I want to bring it all information. So I want to clear any existing data. So again, here all the way in Q4 through T99, I'm going to clear, bring everything information. Now, let's take a look at this. This is going to be using for our filter when we have a filter based on first name or last name. We're going to use our contact results. Remember, I want to bring in first name, or last name, first name. So what I want to use is a formula. I want to bring in all the data. If it's filtered data, fine, it's filtered. If it's not, I just want to bring it, let's say it's not filtered. All I'm going to be doing is bringing in the names and the row, and I want to bring them in right here. So then what I want to do is I want to actually add the name in here. Actually, we could probably do this. I'm going to change this around a little bit the way I had it. I like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it here, and I'm going to bring the row, and this is going to help us bring it in one swoop. So we've got the names. I've got a formula here, and it's going to be based on some information here. So let's bring this, I'm going to show you this formula, redo the formula actually, it's better to redo it. So equals, let's do it from here, equals, I want to know if I should show last name, first name, or first name, last name, and I want to base it on what's here. So I'm going to base it on B1. So if this is false, I want to show Bill Smith and Fred Fredders. If it's true, clicking here, I want to show Smith, Bill, Fredders, Fred. And I want to show that automatically with some formulas. Then what I want to do, that's why I reversed them. Then I want to bring in, once it's done, I want to bring in all this information and I'll bring it right in here and paste it right in here. That's all I really want to do. So let's do that now. But I want to create a formula and I want to bring down that formula for however many contacts we have when we bring it in. So, and I want that formula to reside up here. This formula step here, but when we're ready to use it, I'm going to copy it down here. So let's do this. Let's just write the first formula right now. This is the way I like it. This is the formula here. So let's take a look at that. If Q4, first name, which is required, equals empty, then of course just show empty. Otherwise, if the contacts B1, remember B1 equals true, that means we want to show the last name, then what I want to show is R4, which is the last name, comma, space, the first name. Otherwise, so this is last name, comma, first name. Otherwise, if B1 is false, then I want to show the first name, space, last name. So that's what I want to do. Now, what I want to do is I want to copy this formula right up here. Let's just copy that, and then I'm going to paste that formula right up here because I made some changes. So I'm going to paste the formula. Now, it's not going to show anything up in here, but when I copy this through VBA and paste it down here and paste those formulas, it's going to show up exactly how I want to. So when I delete those formulas, copy them. This is a great way if you have a big workbook and paste those formulas in. It's going to show, not paste the values, paste the formulas right in here and paste the formulas here. It's going to show exactly the way we want to. So that's just what I'm doing. First thing I want to do is clear everything out here and then bring it back in here. Because that we don't necessarily have to do that, but let's say you have a lot of data. You have all these formulas that aren't being used. So you only really need those formulas when you have data. So that's what we're going to do. So Q4 all the way through T99 down, we're just going to clear that out because we'll use VBA to add in those formulas. So let's do that first. We're going to focus on with sheet 2. So with sheet 2, that's going to be the first one. Let's say dot range Q4 through T, and then we can use a large row, not via A, but dot clear contents, dot clear contents. So we've cleared out clear existing data. Now what I want to do is I want to determine the last contact row. The last, of course, we've defined that up here. Last contact row is long, and it's going to be in column A. So last contact row is going to be equal to, and that's AutoHotkey, the last contact row. So I want to know the last row because we're going to bring in, what in this case, all I want to do is bring in all the names and bring in the rows here. So that we can do with just a few lines of code. So I'm going to bring them all since we're actually showing all this isn't filtered. So the last contact row, so dot range, in this case, I want to do first name and last name. So Q4 through R in the last row. So let's do, they both start on the same row. They both start on row 4. So that's going to make it really easy for us. So Q4 through R and the last contact row dot value equals, again, we're going to focus here, Q, we're going to bring it all the way. So first name, last name, B4 through C in the last contact row equals dot range B4 through C and the last contact row. It's going to bring in first and last names. I also want to bring in the row numbers too, so we can do that too. Let's just copy this and then we'll make the update. So in this case, right, we're going to be S through S in the last contact is going to be equal to K. And then K. So K, remember, K is our original row column where we want the rows are. And we want to bring those into S right here. So that's it. So now that we have those in there, we can now bring it in. So let's take a look. But I also want to sort them. You know, it'd be nice if I have them sort them. It would be nice sorted because if it's a long list of names, we do want them sorted. So we should do that as well. So why don't we take care of that? So now that we have that, but I want to know what the sort range should be. But I have to know whether we're sorting first names or last names. So that's going to be based on B1 right here. It's going to be based on this. If it's true, we're going to be sorting last names. If it's false, we're going to be sorting first names. So let's do that. I've already defined the sort range into that. So let's take a look at that sort range as a range. So let's just determine that, and that's going to be our, so if sheet 1 dot range B1, hang on a second, B1 dot value equals true, then the sort range is going to be equal true. We're going to sort on last names, right? If it's true, we're going to sort on R. So then the sort range is going to equal sheet 2 dot range R4. Else, we're going to choose set. I then set the sort range, not equals set because it's a range. Else set sort range equal to sheet S4, sheet 2 Q4, right? First name. If it's false, sheet 2 dot range Q4. Q4 would be for false because that's going to be the first name, Q4. So now we've set that either R4, right? If it's true, we're sorting by last names, which is an R4. It's going to be the first. Last one is going to be C. Now we're ready to run. So I've set the sort range dynamically based on the first name or last name. Now we're ready to focus on the sort. So with dot sort, we're going to focus on the sort now. And the sort, first thing I want to do is clear the sort fields. Sort fields dot clear all the sort fields. Now what I want to do is set that key. So dot sort fields, we're going to set the key add, we're going to set a key. What's the key? Key is going to be equal to sort range. Either one of those fields is dynamic. Sort on equals XL, and then we're going to sort on values. Sort on values. Also, I want to set the order. The order is going to be equal to ascending. So in this case, it's going to be XLA ascending. And now that we have ascending, I want the data option. Data option is going to be equal to XL normal sort. XL sort on normal. Sort normal. Okay, we're now ready to set the range. What's the range? Dot set range. The range is going to be equal. We got to define sheet 2 again, of course, because we're on with sort. Sheet 2 dot range all the way from Q4 through S. Keep everything the same, S, and the last contact row. Dot apply. We're going to apply that filter, not application, and then dot apply. All right, so that's it. That's going to set our sort. Now, once everything's sorted in the right order, I just want to copy that information and bring that over. So now what we're ready to do, we brought it over. Now what I want to do is bring in that formula. We've sorted all of our data based on first name or last name. Now I'm ready to bring in that formula and bring it down. So let's do that right now. We'll get out of the end with, out of sort. So we're going to copy dot range T2 dot copy. Going to copy that formula, and I'm going to bring it all the way down. So dot range, where am I going to put it? T4 through T in the last contact row. Last contact row. Then we're going to paste formulas. Dot paste special paste formulas. Go all the way down. Excel paste formulas. That's what we want right here. Formulas. So bring in all those formulas. Now once we paste it in, we're going to ready to application cut copy mode equals false. Application dot cut copy mode equals false. It's going to get rid of the dancing ants. So once we have that, we're ready to bring it over. Now that we have everything sorted, now I want to take this here, S4 through T in the last row, and bring it all the way over into B5 through C in the last row. Of course, our starting row is 5 here. Our starting row is 4 here. So we do need to compensate for that. So let's do that right now. So sheet 1 dot range B5, that's our starting row, through C and the last contact row plus 1, right? Because we need to compensate. Plus 1 dot value equals, and then all we're going to do is based on that information. Dot range S, and then 4 through T and the last contact row. And the last contact row. Okay, bring in those values, and that's going to bring in both the rows and the contacts. Copy over rows and contact names. Sorted, of course, which is nice. So that's it. Now we're good. We're finished with that, and we're ready to close up this. Let's get rid of the rest of this. We don't need that. Application screen updated to save our work before running our code. Especially important when we have clear contents. You don't want to clear anything that you didn't intend to. Now I want to take this and I want to assign this particular macro to that show all button here. So this button here, show all, this one I want to assign to it. So assign the macro, add show all. So we'll click that, click OK. Now we'll see if there's any issues in that. Perfect. Now we've got our names here. Look, it's Freders. Now what if I want to do, but now notice I want to assign the macro to this too. If I click here, I want them resorted. So I'm going to right click, assign the macro, show all, contact show all, click here. So now when I click last names, look, now it's sorting based on Bill Smith, first names, last names. Perfect. That's just the way I want. All right, great. Well, we've got just a little bit more to do. I'm gonna update the filter. Let's add in the filter and import Google content. So let's take care of the rest of the filter now. So basically what I want to happen is when I click on one of these, I want to search for context that at least start with that. So how do we do that? Let's take a look inside the code and let's add some code for that. It's going to be similar to what we just wrote, but this one we're going to call set letter filter. Set letter filter, and we have a context. So I want to set that letter filter, and it's going to be based on this right here. This is our thing. I was going to use a formula for this, but I think I'm going to use VBA. So I'm going to clear that out. Right? I was thinking about using a formula, but basically here's what I want to happen. When a user enters something like here, I might want to search any name that starts or ends with this. But when they click here, I want to do something that just starts with this. So I'll show you the difference. It's kind of cool. We'll have two different types of filters, but they're both the criteria is going to end up directly here. Now this first name is dynamic. It's going to be, they can sort by the first name or the last name, right? So if I want that, and I know it's linked H4 is going to be first name or last name. So if I link H4, notice it just changed. All we need to do is link it to context H4. So anytime we make a change inside here, it's going to show automatically. So we can filter by either one of them simply by selecting here. Great. So we've got that. Now what we want to do is I want to take all of these and I want to use one single macro to click one. I don't want to assign 26 different macros. I want to use one macro to do this. And then notice we have in group, we'll have to update this. We've just created this. All right, let me show you how we're going to do that. So the first thing what we want to do is I want to set up, it's a very simple macro. So this is what we're going to do, the set filter letter. So what I want to do is I want to make a change. Keep in mind this. Each button is named. Remember, we created a macro. Each button has a different name. This is letter A, this is letter B, and so forth. So all I need to use is something that we call application caller, and that gives us the name of the shape that actually called it. So let's try that right now. So what do I want to happen? I want to do two things. I want to place something in here, and then I want to place something in here, and then I want to run the filter. So what do I want to place in here? I want to place at least the label. Actually, probably not necessary to place it in here, but it kind of gives a nice idea. So let's do that. In other words, what I mean is we don't necessarily need to place the letter in here. I just need to run the filter, but it would be kind of cool. Either way is good. So let's take a look at that right now. So what do I want to happen? Well, the first thing I really want to do is we're going to use this as criteria. We're going to use an advanced filter. I'm going to take all this information. I'm going to filter by the first name, and I need to know it starts with. So that means it's going to be, let's say it's going to be, I want A if I want to start with names that start with A, and then asterisk. So that's the wild card. That means anything after A on the first name I want to show. So that's what I want in there. So all I need to do in sheet 2 and 3 is place that. So how do we do that? Inside the code, let's do that. So context set letter, sheet 2 dot range n3 dot value equals, what's it going to equal? Again, what I want is application, but I don't want the application, because if I just do the application caller, it's the name is what? Right? I don't want that. I don't want the full name, right? The full name of this shape is letter A. I don't want this letter. How do I remove the word letter and just keep A? Well, I can use replace for that. So let's wrap that in a replace and do just that. So replace, what are we replacing? Application.caller. That's the name of the shape that called it. What are we're looking for? I'm looking for letter. The word's letter. So let's look for that. Letter, spell it right. And then what do I want to replace it? I want to replace it with nothing. Great. So what that's going to do is going to place A, but I don't want just A. Remember, I want A and the asterisk and the asterisk. Perfect. So that's what I want. So now I want to assign this particular macro to everything in that group, but I need to reassign this. Notice show all is in the group too. So I don't want that. So right click, assign macro, paste that in there. Good, perfect. So now when I click B, let's take a look in here. B star, that's what I want. Maybe one more thing, it'd be nice to show what we're searching for in here, so I want to do that. Also, remember, we just incorrectly assigned this macro, so we need to reassign this macro to just the, because we show all. Why did that happen? Because this show all is in the group. So now every single thing. So let's also place in F4 the letter, just so we know that we can see something happen right away. So I'll do that right now. So all we need to do is just copy this here and then just make the update. So in this case, sheet 1, right? In this case, it's now, of course, we're placing it inside F4, so we need to update the range. F4 is the range, F4. We don't want the asterisk in this way. So letter, so that's what we want to do. So now when I click here, DF. Perfect. So now we can kind of see, it's not really necessary, but it's kind of, I'll center that because why is it not necessary? Because our actual filter is going to run off this. So now what I want to do, now I've got the criteria, I've got the criteria label, and I've got the criteria actual. So now we're ready to run our advanced filter. Going to run that advanced filter based on here. Okay, and we want the results also to come in here, just like we did last time. So the results, but last time we brought in all results. Here we only want filtered results. So how do we do that? Well, let's run a macro, and we're going to run that filter macro, and that's just what we're going to do that. So I'm going to call it contact filter, and it's this same filter basically that we're going to run whether the user is actually entering a value here, if they want to look for any name that becomes Fred, or if they want to search based on a letter. So it's going to be the same macro. So let's do that right now inside the VBA, and we'll go ahead and add some code for this. It's going to be called, first of all, again, what I want to do is clear the contents, clear any existing data. So we have that up here already. So we can, in fact, let's just copy this entire macro here and paste it down here, and then we're going to make some updates. We do need to make some updates. So the first thing we want to do is clear that filter. So we do want to determine the last row. We're not bringing all the data in, so we don't need that. In other words, we're only bringing filtered amount of data in based on advanced filter, but we do need the last contact row. Last time we brought in all the data. Here we're bringing in a filter, so I want to determine the last row, run an advanced filter based on the criteria, and get the results right in here, based on here. Now we're ready to run our advanced filter. So let's go ahead and put that in. I'm going to automate that process just a little bit. It's going to help us. That's auto hotkey that helps me write that in. So let's update this. Of course, it's not updated. So it's going to be at A3. That's where we're starting our advanced filter in the column. That's going to be the first column, the first row, including the headers. It's going to go all the way to K. So let's update that inside the code. K and the last, of course, not last transaction row, that's just some automated text that used to help me, but this is actually going to be last contact row. And then, of course, the criteria, of course, is going to be here, N2 through N3. So I'm going to update that, N2 through N3. Great, so now we've got that, N2 through N3, because that's our criteria. Next up, our results. Where do we want the results to go? I want the results to go here. Just these three columns, first name, last name, and row. So it's going to be Q3 through S3. That's where our results are going to go. So let's update this range here, Q3 through S3. Good. So now we've got that unique equals false in this case because no matter what the records are, I want them to show up. So we've got that. I just need to determine the last results row. I've got last results row all the way up here. So I'm going to copy that. That's already been dimensioned as a long. So last results row is going to be based on the first name, which is required. So it's going to be last result equals based on Q. All right, so now we've got that. Now we want to make sure that there actually is values here. So let's just write some code to make sure that there is. If last result row is less than 4, then we know there's no results. 4, then exit sub. That's fine. We can go exit. Now, just to make sure the data, that would mean if there's no values here, there's nothing else we can do. So that would be that there's no data. So assuming that there is data, we can then move on. So what else do we want to know? I want to then see what the sort range is here. Again, we got to set the sort range. We've got that right here. Set the sort range. So everything else is here. Now I've got the data in here. So everything else, let's just double check. Everything else is where setting the sort range, set the sort range. We've got the last contact row, but should be last results row. Remember, we've updated this. This time we're going to use last result row, not the last contact row. So we do need to update that last result row and then last result row because we're basing it on the results, not the contact row. So we need to update all of these things based on that last contact row and then update this to last result row based on all of that because our results are going to be dynamic based on the filter. So Q through S, the last result, we're setting either our sort range based on Q4 or R4 based on whether it's first name or last name sorting. We are then going to apply that. We're going to copy, again, T2, we're copying that, bringing our formulas down, getting the last result row, paste formula, cut, copy, multiply, false, last result row plus 1. Everything's going to be the same thing. That's just what I want here. Okay, we're going to save that. And now what we want to do is we got contact filter. So this is what I want to run automatically when we make that change. So let's go ahead and take a look. Now, if we click here, C, then I want that automatically to run. So let's do that right now and update that code. So let's take a look here inside letter filter. I want to run this macro here. When I click there, so basically now we want to run the macro when we click a number. So we click C, no, nobody starts. Let's update that. dot range. Obviously we got to focus, we didn't set a sheet name, so we're focused on clear existing data, not date here. Okay, so we need data. And then basically Q4 through T, this is based on sheet 2. Okay, so sheet 2 is where we're focused on. We need to update, so with sheet 2, that's what we're going to focus all that on here. So we're going to bring all that and bring that end width all the way down here at the bottom. That's what we're going to focus on. That's important too. Bring it all the way down here. So everything else is defined with sheet 1. That's very important. We need to define that. We don't want to forget that. Reset, check for more bugs. I'll just run the filter now. End width without width. Okay, we've got already too many end widths. We want to keep it here. Any which way is fine. Reset that and then run it again. Okay, looks good. That's what we want. Let's take a look here. First name Charles. That's what I want. Good. First name Fred. That's what I want. But we need to clear out these information. Let's take a look here. We do need to make sure sheet 1, we need to clear everything out before. Just notice the results came. Sheet 1, we want to clear out again before. So we want to make sure that's on tap for that. So we've done that already here. Let's take a look at here. All I want to do is clear this out right here and bring this in here. Clearing that out, that's important too. So now see, that's perfect. F, that's what we want. So now show all, perfect. That's what we want. Nobody starts with an A. B is what we want. Good. That's it. Notice we cleared out this because we're clearing it out twice, but that's okay. What do I mean by that? It didn't show up here. I'm clearing it out right here. F4. If we remove this, it's kind of update you want. F4, maybe or maybe not you want it. If you want that letter, if you want to know what you're searching by here. Next up, what I want to do, one more type of filter. I'm going to show all. I want to actually put in this and make a change. And in this case, I want to sort out by either beginning or end or any type of name with Fred. So first name as far as this. So how do we do that? Well, that's going to be on change of F4. It's going to be a change event. So let's go into the code here and focus just on that. We're going to focus on worksheet and then not selection change, but change event. So it's going to be worksheet change right here. If not, we make a change. What are we making a change to? If we're making a change to F4, that's what we want to focus on. F4, then we want to do something. F4 is nothing. Then, right, want to add then what do we want to do? Well, I want to, of course, run that filter, but first what I want to do is I want to take whatever is here and I want to paste that right in here, but I want to put the asterisk on either side of it, in this case, in N3. So let's do that right now. So what I want to do is I want to, in case it includes, so sheet 2 dot range N3 dot value equals, and then asterisk, and what else? The target value and the target dot value, and again, the asterisk in the quotes and the asterisk. So that way, any value, now I've set the criteria, now we can just run the filter. Now we'll run the filter. So all we need to do, again, go to contact filters, take a look at this is the one we want to run based on that. So we're going to copy that over here, paste it in here, and we've got it good. So that's what I want to happen here. Let's take a look at that. So now when I search Fred, perfect. That's what I want to happen. Search by, and this should work by last name too as well. Why? Because Fred isn't Fred. So now we've got 2. Notice Charles. That's what I want. It includes the word Fred. Perfect. Okay, I want to do something else. I want to load these contacts. When I make a selection here, I want to have that contact information show up here. So how do we've already written the contact load. So let's do that. That's going to be on selection change of C5 through C in the last row. Since we're already on the sheet, we can focus on that. If not, right? Selection change, based on when the user makes the selection change C5 all the way on down C999, but not on any cell, right? It has to actually contain a value, and range C and the target dot row dot value does not equal empty. We want to make sure then what do we want to do? Then I want to do a few things. And if, first close the loop, I want to set the row. We want to set the selected row based on whatever's in B3. So we want to do that. That's for sure. That's the first thing we want to do. Range, B, we don't need to say the sheet because we're on the sheet. Dot value equals the target row. One more thing, what I want to do, I want to set the database row. Where's that database row? It's going to be located in B in the target row. So we can do that. Range, B2 dot value equals range, B and the target dot row dot value. Once we have that, now we've got the selected row in here. I've got the contact database row because it's going to come from here. Now what we can do, see, notice how now all I need to do is just add one macro, and that's to load the contact. We'll check for issues on that, bugs or anything like that. What macro is that? Well, that's this macro right here, contact load here. Copy that, go ahead back into contacts and add it right here. Now when I click on here, it's going to load the contact just like that. Beautiful. So we've got contact load, we've got contact delete, we've got add new, save, update. The last and final thing is to import contacts. I want to import contacts from Google. So how are we going to do that? Well, I'm going to walk you step by step through that right now. The first thing we need is a trigger. In other words, something is got a trigger, and we're going to use Integromat for that, and we're going to use Google Sheets, and I'm going to import that. First is going to come into our contacts, then it's going to go from Google Contacts into Google Sheets, and then we're going to bring it in Excel. So let's walk through that right now. So we've got our Google Drive here. I've got our contacts here. So that's what I want to do. I want to bring in, so for example, if I create a contact here, I'm going to create just a contact. Okay, just created a contact here, Sally Smith. So I'm going to save that now because I want that imported back into Excel. So I've got my contacts, and what I want to do is I want to use Integromat, a brand new scenario. We're going to save this. Let's close this out. We're going to save it. I'm going to turn it on, make sure it's on, activate it, save it, and now we're going to create a brand new one. And again, what I want to do is I want a brand new trigger. So we're going to do a few things here. What I want to do is I want to create a brand new trigger. But before I do that, let's just set up a Google Sheet just to help us to do that. So I'm going to click on New. I'm going to click on Google Sheets. This is in Google Drive, if you don't know, blank spreadsheet. And then we're going to call this Excel Contacts Sync. So now inside this, I want the header row, but I want those header rows exactly like I have it in our data. Exactly. So what is this? Again, I want them exactly like this. So I'm just going to copy them right here. Copy that, and I'm going to paste that right into Google Sheets, which allows us to do that. So I'm going to paste it. All right, and just Control V. I'm going to paste those right in here, right, just like that. Okay, so now we have our information here. Now we've got everything in here, and we are ready to do it. We've got a name on the sheet. Now we're ready. Let's go back into Integromat and now create our automation. So the first thing, again, we're going to start with webhook. We want webhook, so we're going to click on that. We also want Google Contacts. We're going to select that, Google Contact. And actually, we want Google Sheets. So I'm going to click Google Contact, and now we want Sheets by Google. So we can just put in Sheets and click Google Sheets. So I want all three. Now I'm going to continue. Okay, the first thing we're going to start out, we need a trigger. Something in Excel has to trigger. We're going to use a custom webhook. This is going to be our trigger. So again, I'm going to add this. I'm going to call this, you can call it anything you want, Sync Contacts, and click Save, and that's going to give us a webhook. I'm going to copy that webhook, copy that. Okay, now once I have that, all I'm going to do is just creating a trigger on this. So that's what we're going to do. So now we're going to go into a macro called import, and now I've got an import macro. Oh, I've already written it already. I didn't erase it. You guys want to see this? All right, let me go through it here. I'm going to update this. This is what I have. I'm going to walk you through it. So we're already long on this. So the first thing we want to do, which is here, and basically what I want to do is I want to clear out all the information, and I want to take everything from that Google Sheets. I want to sync it into here. Then what I want to do is I want to bring all this information, determine if it is new, if it is existing. If it's new, I want to add it to the contact list database here. So that's what I'm going to do. So let's take a look back inside the code and also back inside Integromat. So basically, we're going to run this patch. We're going to run just like we did before. Basically, all I'm going to do, and this time I'm just sending something called import request. It's just some text. It's going to allow us to trigger. So all I want to do is really create a trigger, and then once that triggers. So here it is. Let's go back inside. We were at the sync contacts here. Sync contacts, that's what we're looking for. This is the text that we copied. We're going to redetermine the data structure. And now what I want to do is I want to send that. I'm going to send that here. So I'm going to click. I'm just going to actually stop it here and then just send it from here. So that's going to let us send it. And so now once we've sent it, it's successfully determined. All we're doing is sending a trigger. So click OK. Now what I want to do, I want to add an event. Now I want to add get Google Contacts, but this time what I want to do is I want to list my contacts. So this is what I'm going to do, list my contacts. That's what I'm going to do. Great, we can set a sort order. That's not going to be important. We can set the limit. We can set it to 100, although I only have 3, but depending upon how many you have. So we've got that. That's all that's going to do is going to bring in, let me set the right Gmail account because I got multiple accounts. Excel for Freelancers, that's the one I want. That's the one we're focused on. That's the account that I'm using now, so that's the one I want. So click that. So that's all going to pull a contacts. Now, what do I want to do with that? I want to take those contacts and I want to put them into Google Sheets. So I'm going to click Google Sheets, and what do I want to do? I want to add a row to the bottom of the table. And basically, because we're going to start out with a blank table, so it doesn't matter. So I'm going to click on here. Now it's going to connect to Google Sheets. So, but I want to connect to you can click Add, it'll automatically connect. Let's call this Google Contact Sync. Anything you want, and click Continue, and it's going to connect to the right account. So I want to connect to my Excel for Freelancers account. That's the one I'm going to focus on. Click allow, and it's going to make that connection. It's going to look up the sheet. So now it's going to ask me to select a specific spreadsheet. So I'm going to select Excel Contact Sync. It's the only sheet I have in there. And it's going to find sheet 1 is the only sheet we're focused on. Table contains headers. Yes, it does. So it's going to look up those headers. It's going to find those headers. Now what I can do is simply map the information from Google. So I click on Contact ID. Contact ID is going to be put in column A. First name, of course, is going to be first name. So now all I have to do is just look up the first name, and that's going to be called given name. And then the last name is going to be the family name. So we'll click on the family name. Phone ID 1, we'll call this phone 1. Now you want to go down here, all the way down to phone numbers, right? And then just click value, but it's a little bit different. We want to make sure that we click here, it's 1, but we have 2 phone numbers. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go down to phone here, go back down to phone addresses, phone numbers. I'm going to click value again, but this time I'm going to click here. I'm going to change it to 2. 2 is the one I want to focus on here. Do the same thing for emails. So again, because there's multiple emails, email addresses, clicking on value here. 1 is fine for this one, but in this one we're going to focus on 2. Back into email address, value again, change this value to 2. 2 is the one we want to focus on because there's 2. Now you can have multiple. So company, of course we have company. That's going to be located down here. We'll call that, let's take a look. Organization name, that's the organization. The website, also part of the organization. So we'll click on domain, and then notes. Of course we do have notes all the way down here. That's on the contact notes right here. So we've got everything filled out. Row OK, we don't need nothing else in there. We don't want the row, that doesn't matter. So click OK, we don't need that. Once we have all the data in Google Sheets, what do I want to do? I want to bring that back into, I want a response and letting us know. So we've got to set the webhook response, just letting us know that we've created it. And then we'll just call this contact updated. Actually, I'd like to know how many contacts, how many. So let's take a look at that. Let's see how many contacts got updated. So if you see here, total number of bundles, we can put that there. Then we put a space and call this contacts from, of course, we know it's from Google, right? So we can put that in here from Google contacts. That's going to let us know. Now, keep in mind, if there's duplicates, of course, we wouldn't update that. It means if there's the same contacts already. So good, that's the webhook I want. That's everything that I want. We can zoom out a little bit and we can give this a name. Let's Control A and then sync Google contacts. Now we got to do something else. So now let's bring that into, I want to bring it into Excel. So I'm going to click run once. And I'm first going to bring it into Google Sheets because that's important. So now it's waiting for us. And now what we can do is we can reset this. And then I'm going to run this, and then we'll go through the macro as we works out. So I'm going to run this macro, going to bring all the information in here. It's going to run here, and let's take a look here. Now it's getting the information in. Let's take a look. All it did was send import request. That's just the trigger. We take a look at that. We've got some bundle 1, bundle 2, bundle 3. So it's got all the information, sending out all the information, bringing it into Google Sheets. We take a look at that. 4 contacts got information. Take a look inside our Excel. Look, our contacts made it in with our contacts ID, all the information. Now what I need to do is I need to get this into Excel. So everything worked just right, and we'll walk you through it. So let's take a look at this. It says we need at least some source data. Of course, we got to have that because we just cleared it out, but don't worry because we're going to bring it in. So once we refresh, the next step we're going to refresh, that's going to bring data into Excel. So that bug's okay because we haven't brought it into Excel. That's what I'm going to show you exactly how to do it now. So what I have to do is got it now. I want to share this. So we're going to go down to there, and actually we're going to call publish to the web, and we need a shared link. So not the entire document, just sheet 1. We're going to click publish. What that's going to do is give us a link, and I'm going to copy that link right now, copy that, Control C. Now I'm going to go back into Excel and I'm going to create a data connection. I want that here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it over here. I'm going to unhide A, usually hide A. So let's unhide A. I'm going to select A1. So once I've got column A unhidden, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into data from web, right? And I'm going to paste that link that we just copied right in here, and then click go. Once that's going to load our data. So now I want to import it. And where do I want to import it? Right in A1 should be just fine. So it's going to be A1. Let's click A1. That's where I want it. Import A1. We don't need a new worksheet. Clicking on properties, you can see you've got some information. You want to save it, enable background refresh. We don't need that necessarily because we've got it tied to a macro. Insert cells for new data, delete unused data, or insert entire rows for new data. overwrite existing data is fine for us because we're just bringing all the information in. And then fill down formulas, we're going to do that automatically, so we don't need that. Click OK and click OK. And now it's going to bring all the data in just as well. It's also going to hide column A for us. So it's bringing it in. Perfect. So now the information's brought in. Now we have all the information just as we want it, brought in from Google Sheets. You can see here, we've got everything here. We don't need the row. It's not important here. Great. So now I've got the information in here. How do I do that? Inside the code, that's exactly the next step. Once we get the response, this workbook refresh is going to do just that. It's going to refresh all the connections. When I run that code, it's exactly the same as going into data and refresh all. It's going to pull anything else from Google. If it's found, it's going to refresh everything from Google. Now what I need to do is I need to determine which contacts are new and which are existing, and we can use contact ID. Now I created a named range called contact ID. If we go into formulas, name manager, contact ID, tab over, we see that I've created a dynamic named range for all the contacts ID. So all I need to do is determine if there's a match. So basically what I want to do is I want to run some kind of a filter, an advanced filter. I want to look at all the contacts. Here's Sally Smith. Notice we've just created those inside Google, right? And so what I want to do is I want to determine a formula. If the formula exists, if it exists, I want to put true. So there's going to be a formula. And I want to take that. So what I'm saying is I want to determine if it's found. Let's just put something like exists. And I'm going to create a formula here. So if it exists, then I want to know. So how do we know if this exists inside? Let's create a formula right here. Well, let's do it here. Equals is error. Check on that. Match. If it's an error, I want to know. Match. What am I looking up? I'm looking up this contact ID. Where am I looking it up? I'm looking up in the named range contact ID that I created. And I want an exact match. I want to know if this is an error. So this is not an error. This one should be an error. So when I drag this down here, this one's an error, right? These two are errors because they're not inside. Notice Charles and Frederson is not inside here, okay? That one contact's not in. So those two contacts are not there. So those are the only ones that I want to import. So now that I have it, all I need to do is create an advanced filter, and I only want the results to show it's true. And I want those results here. Once I know all of those ones that are true, meaning they don't exist in result, I can bring them over. And that's just what we're going to do inside the rest of the code. So let's take a look at that. The first thing what I do is I'll put that formula. Let's copy that formula. I'm going to put it right in L1. All I'm going to do within VB is copy this, bring it down, paste special, paste the formulas. So that's going to say now I want to run an advanced filter, base it on whatever's true, have the results here, bring those results and put them right in here. So that's all we need to do in the rest of the code. So let me walk you through that since I already created it for you. Once I determine the last row, I can then copy down the formula, check the context. So L4 through L contact row formula equals L1 formula. That's it. Let's actually make this. I'm going to change this up. I'm going to bring this down to row 1 because that's where we're starting, row 1. So it's not really a copy and paste. It's a value. It's a formula to formula. So if we start on row 1, it will do just that. So L1 formula equals 4 through L. So that's going to bring our formula, our check column formula down. Now we're ready to run our advanced filter. Notice I start to move faster and slur my words, especially in a 2-hour video. Sorry about that. 2 hours. All right, moving on. We're almost done here. B3 and L, we're going to run that advanced filter, last contact row. We've already defined that up here. We're going to run an advanced filter. Copying it, we're going to set the criteria to N2 to N3. This is what I want. I want to know only N2 exists, N2 and N3. We're going to take those results and place them inside P through Z. So that's where we don't need this. Actually, I need this. And then this exists. So exists is fine. Actually, it should be new, right? New, right? New would be false. It's not new. True, it is new. So that makes more sense. New and then new. So, okay. So that way everything's the same. Remember, you have to make sure they're the same here. So it is new, it's true. If it's not new, it's false. That makes a little more sense. Continuing on, once we run our advanced filter, we have the results come to P3 through Z3. Then what I want to determine the last results row based on P, right? The last results row, I don't know, it depends how many contexts. In this case, the last results row would be 5. So then I want to take from our new and bring it value to value. So I want to determine the last row. So let's continue on. If the last results row is less than 4, then exit the sub. That means there's no data. Assuming that there is data, we can determine the last contact database row. I need to know the first available row. Where are we going to put this data that we brought it over? In this case, it's going to be the last row of the value plus 1, the first row. So that's where we're going to place it. So we're going to get that last row using sheet 2 A and Excel up. Then I'm going to place it in A in the last contact database row. I'm going to place it there. And J in the last contact database row plus minus 4. That's where we're going to place it. This should be plus 1 because this is going to be plus 1, right? That's where we want to place it. In this case, minus 3. I'm going to update that. That's where we want to place it, right? Because this is going to get us our last row plus 1, the first available row, last contact database row. We've already added one. J contact, that's going to place everything. And then, of course, the row, we also want that too there. So that's what we have to do. So A through the last contact database through J. What does that mean? That means A through J, we're going to place all the information, and it's going to come directly from here, P4, all the way to Y. Bringing that information in all the way through Y, P3 through Z, actually Y, we don't need Z, we don't need that new, through Y. Good enough. So it's going to bring the last cases to notes, and it's going to come from notes, so through J. That's just what I want. Bringing the last thing what we want to do is I want to set the formula. So we've brought in all the way to notes. Now we're ready to set the formula. So we're ready to continue on with the formula here, bringing in that row formula. Next up, just message box. I want to know how many contacts are open. How many contacts got imported, which is going to be the last results row minus 3. So let's take a look at that. Let's run that macro and see just how that works. Continuing on, we're going to tie that macro here, bring it to that button here. So we can right click. We've already grouped that button, right click here, and then assign the macro. And then we're going to call this Google Contact Sync here. We've already have it right here. Contacts import right here. So clicking OK. Now we just click on this, run the macro, and it's going to let us know how many contacts got imported. So let that go through. All right, we see that 2 contacts have been imported. Perfect, but I want to get those new contacts right here. So we take a look in the contact, we see the brand new contacts that got. All we need to do is, again, run our refresh. So I want to run that macro. So let's take a look inside what macro we want. That's going to contact show all. I want to run that macro, and that's going to be after the import. So we take a look at the import, and then at the bottom of this, I'm just going to run that macro right there, paste that in there. All that's going to do is just basically going to run this macro just as we did here, bringing in those brand new contacts. Now we can load their information in. All right, this has been an amazing marathon training. I hope you have enjoyed this training. I've shown you an amazing contact manager, how to create your own save, add new, and delete contacts, how to automatically filter based on any name, how to sync and import to Google Contacts, and how to bring Google Contacts back into Excel. It's been an incredible training. Thanks so much. If you like this training, don't forget about the brand new 175 workbook zip file on sale now for just $66. That'll help us out a lot. Can't wait. Next week, we'll see what's happening. Thanks so much. We'll see you then.